Hello, Highrock family. My name is Pastor Bryn, and I am so glad to be worshiping with you from my home in Beverly. A special welcome to Highrock Brookline. We've been worshiping as Highrock North Shore and Highrock Haverhill churches, and now at this point we are inviting Highrock Brookline to join us, and so they're going to be joining us for some of our services throughout the summer. So welcome to Highrock Brookline. We are so glad that you are here. So I want to invite you to take a minute and gather whatever you need to engage in worship this morning. So I'll tell you a couple things that I have to engage in worship. I have my journal and my pen and my giant Bible. And I have, let's see what else I have here. I have some crayons. I got a little tiny easel and some paints. I also have a little Play-Doh. I have a larger Play-Doh just in case I need that. And I brought my best friend, the Niffler. So you might want to take a minute and gather your best friend and whatever else that you need. I'd encourage you to do that now. And if you are a kid, your grown-up hopefully has an email in their inbox and they have some printouts for you. And so I'd encourage you to go grab that email, print out some things to engage in worship this morning, and we'd love for you to join us that way. If you are new with us, if you're joining us for the first time or second time, we have a digital communication card which you can find just under the video below. We would love to get to know you. We would love a chance to hear more of your story and how we can help you connect at Highrock, North Shore, and Haverhill and Brookline. So we'd invite you to fill that out, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss out on anything that we have coming up. And now I'd like to invite you to join Jess in the call to worship.
Let's sing. Oh Lord, let my soul rise up to meet you as the day rises up to meet the dawn. All glory to God, the Father, the Spirit. All glory to Jesus, the radiant sun, as it was in the beginning, as it is and ever will be.
One, two, three. In the power of Jesus' name, let angels prostrate fall. Bring forth the royal diadem and crown him Lord of all. Bring forth the royal diadem and crown him Lord of all. Seed of Israel's race, he ransomed from the
Our Father, who is in heaven,
hallowed be your name.
Your kingdom come, your will be done,
on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins,
as we forgive those who have sinned against us.
And lead us not into temptation,
but deliver us from evil.
For yours is the kingdom,
And the power,
and glory, forever and ever.
forever and ever. Amen.
Hi, I'm Susan Sharp, and I'm worshiping with you from Haverhill. Welcome to this week's edition of Hopebound. My family and I are part of Highrock Haverhill. We have 3 boys. Andrew just finished 1st grade. Daniel just graduated from preschool. Nathan turned 3 a little over a month before quarantine began. On March 13th, we suddenly found ourselves homebound in the middle of cold weather, wet weather, working and learning remotely, supervising other people's curriculum, and cooking all the food all the time. Let me tell you, being stuck inside in one place with 7, 5, and 3-year-old boys is loud, chaotic, and exhausting. But as much as it was and continues to be challenging and difficult at times, quarantine revealed a lot of other things. With schools closing, many students lost the stable and safe space in their lives. Many others lost the free breakfast and lunch that schools had been providing. And COVID-19 and quarantine revealed the overwhelmingly disproportionate costs for people of color in terms of infection rates, death rates, financial vulnerability, and being put at risk more often by being left with little choice but to work in unprotected environments as essential workers to make sure that people like me could get groceries and make orders off of Amazon. In the midst of all this, I do see glimpses of hope. Very quickly, our city schools began providing breakfast and lunch for all kids under 18 in Haverhill. As quarantine dragged on, there became more space for voices of the oppressed on social media and less activity to distract from ongoing police brutality against Black and brown bodies. Last month, several Haverhill High School students organized a Black Lives Matter march. As I was wavering about dragging 3 little white boys 2 miles through Haverhill in the middle of a very hot day, Andrew heard me and declared that we should absolutely do it. Over the past few years, we've had many conversations with the boys as they have navigated friendships with peers of different shades of skin. Some of the families speak other languages at home. We've talked about their whiteness and the way that school, the police, and other systems benefit them because of the way they look and the legacy behind the color of their skin. Andrew put all this together and was eager, along with his brothers, to hold a sign and participate in chants as we marched through Haverhill. Black-led community organizations like the Power of Self-Education, POSE, Inc., have held community discussions around race, giving space for public officials, the chief of police, and Black community leaders to talk about Black experiences and the intersection of our city's systems. Highrock Haverhill is also hosting a book discussion around The Color of Compromise by Jamar Tisby. We're learning about the church's complicity in slavery and the systems of oppression that have been born out of it. Some of us are brand new to hearing this part of our history. Some of us have been on a journey of increasingly intentional anti-racism for a while. Together, we're all learning and considering how we can choose the true gospel that builds up equality and values all people equally. My hope and prayer is that as things open up, we will not be distracted and drop the burden of racial justice back onto the oppressed just because we can, but that instead we will work to push back the burdens of abuse and systematic injustice, to keep learning and listening, to deepen our relationships with Black-led community organizations, to keep training and practicing being a safe and trauma-informed space, and that when we stumble and when we make mistakes, we will listen with humility, get back up, and try again. This has been this week's edition of Hopebound.
I know a place where I can find you, here in the valley of the shadow. Give me eyes to see where you're leading me, and I know a place where I can feel, here in the freedom of forgiveness. Give me strength to hold fast whisper in the chaos. Give me faith to stand strong in this rushing wind. Restore my soul, I'm yours alone, oh King of glory. When dark gives way to light, your hope will rise, oh King of glory. Surely goodness and mercy follow me. Every moment I will dwell with you. You restore my soul, I'm yours alone, oh King of glory. When dark gives way to light, your hope will rise, oh King of glory.
So before we move on, I want to share one announcement for Highrock North Shore. So many of you know that for the last few years, we have partnered with Essex County churches and a collective that we call the North Shore Gospel Partnership. Now, all of the churches in the Gospel Partnership have been exploring what it means to be part of racial justice and fighting racial injustice in our area. And one of the things that we've been learning in our conversations is that it's not enough just to know about what's happening in the world and in our country. That's important for us to explore and learn about. But it's also really important that we learn about our region and our specific history of racial inequality and inequity here on the North Shore. And so periodically, we're hosting online forums to talk about that and hear from Black, Indigenous, and people of color here in our area and learn about their experiences and what they would like us to know as we engage in these conversations. And so on July 29th, we're going to have an online forum on Facebook. You can see the details here on our slide. We'd love for you to tune in and hear from one family about their experience of racial justice and racial injustice and what they would like for us to know as we are moving forward. So we hope that you will put that on your calendars and tune in, participate. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions and just hear from people who have done work in this area and would like to share their stories with us. And now as we continue with our worship this morning, if you call a Highrock church your home church, we would love for you to continue partnering in mission with us with the giving of resources through your time, your talent, and your treasure. If you're new with us, if you're just visiting with us this morning, we would love for you to just let your worship be your offering and consider your partnering at a different time after you've decided that you want Highrock to be your church family. But if this is your church home, we hope that you will continue to partner on mission with entrusting the church with what God has entrusted you with. I will open my huge Bible. There's one passage that I love here when it comes to thinking about giving generously. It's in 1 Chronicles 29. It says, "But who am I and who are my people that we should be able to give as generously as this? Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand." So we invite you to do that. You can find out ways to give on our church's website, so you can mail your checks in. We would love for you to participate in worship in that way. And now I'd invite you to stand as you're able and join us in the reading of God's Word.
Hi everyone, my name is Yumiko, one of the pastors at Highrock, Brookline. Today's reading from the Word of God comes from Isaiah chapter 5, verses 1 through 7. Please follow along in your own Bibles or listen as I read the scripture. Again, that's Isaiah chapter 5, verses 1 through 7. Following the reading, I invite you to respond in worship with the singing of the doxology. Hear the word of the Lord. Now I will sing for the one I love, a song about his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard on a rich and a fertile hill. He plowed the land, cleared its stones, and planted it with the best vines. In the meadow, he built a watchtower and carved a wine press in the nearby rocks. Then he waited for a harvest of sweet grapes. But the grapes that grew were bitter. Now you people of Jerusalem and Judah, you judge between me and my vineyard. What more could I have done for my vineyard that I have not already done? When I expected sweet grapes, why did my vineyard give me bitter grapes? Now let me tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will tear down its hedges and then let it be destroyed. I will break down its walls and let the animals trample it. I will make it a wild place where the vines are not pruned and the ground is not hoed, a place overgrown with briars and thorns. I will command the clouds to drop no rain on it. The nation of Israel is the vineyard of the Lord of heaven's armies. The people of Judah are his pleasant garden. He expected a crop of justice, but instead he found oppression. He expected to find righteousness, but instead he heard the cry of violence. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Let's sing. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen.
Good morning. My name is Brent. I'm the pastor of technical arts at Highrock North Shore. And yes, Dad, I know I need a haircut, but I've just decided to lean into it, so cut me a break, please. Let's pray. Father, you are good. This morning, we ask that as we all meet scattered and in our own homes, that you would meet us where we are and give us a sense of unity and connectedness and community, Father. This morning we ask that you would tune our hearts and minds to hear what you would be saying and how you would be prompting and where you would be leading, God. We love you. We ask all these things in Jesus' strong name. Amen. At various points in my life, I've been involved in band. Middle school band, high school band, college band, concert band, marching band, at one point even a symphonic band. The fact that at one point in my career, I joined with around 200 people to create music for an audience of 90,000 people is something that still astonishes me. But creating music doesn't just happen by accident. There are rules, fundamentals, and principles to music that band members have to individually learn in order to make something that is pleasing to the ear when individuals start playing together. One of those fundamentals is playing in tune, and one of the tools that helps musicians learn to play in tune is brilliantly called a tuner. This is a tuner. I've had this one since I was a senior in high school because next to an instrument, it might be the most important tool for a musician to have. Tuners detect pitch, which simply put is highness or lowness of a note. The tuner then takes the pitch it is given and compares it to the desired pitch and tells you if you are too high, which is called sharp, or too low, which is called flat. So here's a quick video on how a tuner works, and you can see it's already picking up some of the pitch from my voice, and that little needle, when something is in tune, will light up just green and stand straight up and down. So say I'm trying to play a concert F. It'll tell me how flat or sharp I am, and then I can bend the pitch up or down to get more or less in tune. So that's how a tuner works. For the musically trained ear, it's very easy to tell if someone or something is out of tune. And the more musical training you have, the more you steep yourself in music, the more you're able to articulate and identify not only who is out of tune, but whether they are sharp or flat, and by how much. I've been told countless times by other musicians, even and especially during performances, that I am sharp or flat or just completely out of tune. Because a musician can't let someone just keep playing out of tune as if nothing is wrong. It's also funny to watch a musician when they hear a note that is out of tune. Normally they'll have a physical reaction. When a note is sharp or too high, they'll sort of duck as if they're being hit from above and try to bring the note down. Or if a note is flat or too low, you'll see them kind of raise up in their seats and lift their eyebrows in order to bring the note up. When they hear a note that is out of tune, they need to correct it. So much so that they will try through sheer force of will to psychically raise the note by lifting their eyebrows. Good musicians are able to acutely identify and name the issue. And they can't just let a note be out of tune. They have to do whatever they can to fix the situation and bring the note into tune. Good musicians have to fix the situation because when something is out of tune, not only does it just grate on them, it messes up the sound of the piece or the entire group. They know what something is supposed to sound like, and the dissonance of being out of tune unsettles them. And that is sort of how the Old Testament prophets operated, except for Jonah, but we aren't going to talk about him right now. The prophets could not only identify what was wrong, but they were compelled to intervene in an attempt to correct the situation because there was dissonance. It grated on them because God's beautiful and intentional design was out of whack. This morning we are continuing our sermon series called Design, God's Vision for Humanity. We are looking at the various ways that God ordered and intended the world to be. Last week, Aaron looked at God's design in creation and how we as humans bear the divine image. There's beauty and intentionality and strength in diversity. This week we're going to look at God's design for society. And in order to do that, we're going to start by looking at two things. Thing 1 of 2, justice and righteousness. What is it? And thing 2 of 2, profit. What is it? We will see that justice and righteousness are the hallmarks of God's design for society. And prophets are the people who, when things get out of tune, help call out the fact that society is not as it should be and help bring it back into tune. So first, justice and righteousness. What is it? Justice and righteousness are two of the biggest and most important words in the Old Testament, and we're going to try to cover them in under 5 minutes. So here we go. They often appear together, and the two words represent one complex idea. Just like in English, we say the words health and safety or room and board. They take two words and bring them together to represent a more full singular idea. So we'll start by looking at the words individually, and then we'll try to work out how they function together. The first word is Sadiq. Say that with me. Sadiq. One more time. Sadiq. Often the word is translated as righteousness, but that word has become too steeped in religious flavors, and it doesn't quite convey the full range of meaning. When something is Sadiq or righteous, it is as it ought to be. It matches up to the standard. If we look at Leviticus 19:36, it doesn't say, use righteous scales and righteous weights, a righteous ephah and a righteous hin. So the word Sadiq, which is often translated as righteous, more than likely means something fixed and fully what it should be. The second word is a fun one, Mishpat. Say that one with me. Mishpat. Often the word is translated as justice, which in English carries with it images of a courtroom. But this word goes far beyond the courtroom. The meaning of Mishpat can be boiled down to the idea of putting things right. To intervene in a situation where there is wrongdoing or oppression and to fix that situation, both confronting the wrongdoer or oppressor and delivering those who are being wronged or oppressed. This is why the judges in the book of Judges are called judges. They judged Israel, not by levying punitive punishments in a courtroom, but by intervening and setting things right on all fronts. Justice, or mishpat, is a call to action, specifically the action that needs to be taken in order for righteousness, or sadiq, to occur. Broadly speaking, justice is action you take in order to achieve a state of righteousness. Do not miss the fact that justice and righteousness are concrete, not abstract. They are not concepts to reflect or meditate on, but actual things that you do. When there is inequity, justice is the action you take in order to establish the state of equity. When there is oppression, justice is the action you take in order to bring about a state of freedom. When there is imbalance of power, justice is the action you take in order to bring about a state of balance. Justice and righteousness ask, have things been arranged in such a way that everyone has access to what they need? Food, water, shelter, safety, security, connection, support. Does everyone have enough? Or do only a few have more than they could ever need? Justice and righteousness asks, are the people most likely to be stepped on protected? Can their voices be heard and heeded by those who can make a difference? Justice and righteousness are the musical pitch that God intends for his people to hit. Justice and righteousness are what it sounds like when everything is in tune. But as they often do, things in the biblical story got out of tune. So God raised up a group of people in ancient Israel who were directly in tune with God's intentions of justice and righteousness for society. And they spoke up in order to call out what was out of tune and help bring God's people back into tune. This group of people were called the prophets. A prophet, what is it? I spent a decade going to school focusing specifically on the Old Testament, and that journey started on the campus of Oklahoma Baptist University in Shawnee Hall in Dr. Kevin Hall's 7:30 a.m. Introduction to Old Testament class. Dr. Hall was a great professor and just an all-around cool guy. He rides a motorcycle and plays guitar in a band that performs red dirt music. But most importantly, in addition to having the language skills, knowledge of historical critical methods, and the contextual understanding necessary to study the Old Testament, he had an interpretive imagination that breathed life into his work. In Dr. Hall's prophets class, he, naturally, taught me what a prophet was. And to this day, I think it is the most helpful definition I have heard, mostly due to its simplicity. A prophet is someone who has something to say based on what they have seen. They say to the people what they have either been shown or what they have seen, and they function as God's mouthpiece. Normally we think of prophets as these people that have these grand and elaborate visions where either the sun turns into SpaghettiOs or a 7-headed monster with 7 thumbs on its left foot is coming up out of the sea or something like that. And while that is true, prophets do have these grand visions, some specifically of the immediate or distant future, it is at best only half the picture of what a prophet is. Biblical prophets like Isaiah were a group of people who rose up when Israel found itself in a position it was never really intended to be in. When Israel found itself out of tune. In the passage that Yumi read for us this morning, Isaiah makes it very clear why God put Israel in the land. Just like the purpose of planting a vineyard is to produce grapes for wine, and notice that God went through great effort to plant Israel in the land. He went through all of that effort in order for them to produce justice and righteousness. And verse 7 makes this abundantly clear. The nation of Israel is the vineyard of the Lord of heaven's armies. The people of Judah are his pleasant garden. He expected a crop of justice, but instead he found oppression. He expected to find righteousness, but instead he heard cries of violence. Boom! Right there are our words that we spent so much time going over this morning, and their antonyms. God expected justice, or mishpat, but instead injustice and oppression were found. God expected righteousness or tzaddik, but instead inequity and cries of distress were found. God and his prophets expected justice and righteousness, but instead Israel's capital, Jerusalem, was a place of centralized power and wealth. There was an unchecked monarchy, a wealthy ruling class, a bloodthirsty military, a greedy economy, and a powerful religion with its own complications and exploitations. The whole system was completely entwined and in this giant tyrannical mess. The king, the rich, the influential were using their power and wealth to further consolidate their power and wealth at the expense of those who lacked power and wealth. Oppression was rampant, and there was an extreme imbalance of affluence. The prophets rose up because they saw what was happening in and around God's people, and they had to say something. The prophets were like highly trained musicians encountering an out-of-tune orchestra. They were so honed in on proper tuning that they could not just overlook the dissonance. Instead, the prophets were people that spoke truth to power, and they were unceasing, fearless, and went after not just individuals, but the giant, entangled, oppressive system that was stepping all over everyone in their midst. A prophet is someone who has something to say based on what they've seen. Not only what they had seen in visions or dreams, but also, and more frequently, a prophet had something to say when they saw that there was a lack of justice and righteousness. The Psalms teach us that God loves justice and righteousness. God's people are to be people of justice and righteousness because God is a God of justice and righteousness. God loves justice and righteousness and hates tyranny and oppression. This fact is all over Israel's history, even from the very beginning. All the way back in Genesis 18, when God called Abram, God made the intention and design for Israel clear. For I have chosen him, so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, or by doing justice and righteousness, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. And then in the Exodus, God delivered Israel from the oppression and tyranny of Pharaoh. In the law, God laid down stipulation after stipulation protecting the vulnerable as a means to insulate and protect Israel from becoming a people who oppress. In the exile, when God let God's own people be taken into captivity, God was delivering them from the oppressive system that Israel had imposed on itself and the ones that it had been imposed upon them. I think Old Testament scholar James Mays hit the nail on the head when he said, "The entire history of Israel under God is subordinated to one purpose: righteousness expressed in justice." And God's desire for justice and righteousness do not end with Israel or the exile or in the Old Testament. And that brings us to another prophet. Jesus the prophet arrives on the scene and reads again from the prophet Isaiah. He says of himself, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free and proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Jesus then goes to the cross and defeats sin and shame and every system of tyranny and oppression. And he'll one day return and fully establish a kingdom that is characterized by justice and righteousness. In the meantime, we seek as much as we are able to do the work of the prophets, to bring about that future kingdom of justice and righteousness into our reality, into the here and the now. It's hard to be a prophetic voice that calls out injustice and inequity if we do not learn to listen and see like the prophets did. This is why I would suggest that the way we begin participating in the work of the prophets is to actually start by listening and learning, especially and maybe specifically those of us who are white. It is sometimes easy to see something that is wrong and just charge into the situation thinking we have all the answers and know exactly how to fix it. And in doing that, we make ourselves into saviors. And it is most definitely easier to remain comfortable by closing our eyes and ears to the injustice and inequity in the world around us and ignoring the oppressed, no matter how many times they cry out. Both extremes are wrong. Learning to listen and see like a prophet in order to speak and act like a prophet requires learning and listening. Injustice and inequity are highly adaptable forces that have survived for so long because of their fluidity, because of their ability to morph and change. If we, and I'm speaking predominantly to my fellow white people, if we don't take the time to learn and identify things like white supremacy, police brutality, the school-to-prison pipeline, mass incarceration, new Jim Crow, housing and educational inequality, and the many other forms of discrimination and racism, we will let some of the most egregious expressions of injustice and inequity go unaddressed, and we will continue to prop up and contribute to these systems that oppress. Side note, please don't call your friend who is black, indigenous, or a person of color and make them explain racism and white supremacy to you. Pick up a book and read. Or if reading isn't your jam, there are audiobooks, podcasts, social media accounts, and movies. There are so many easily accessible resources out there. So unless a close friend has initiated the conversation and has expressed a desire to share their view with us, we cannot place the burden of education on the shoulders of those who have had to carry the weight of injustice. One caveat before we conclude: while I strongly believe that listening and learning is truly the best place for most of us to begin, if it is the place we end, we have fallen short of doing the work of the prophets. My goal is to not just encourage you to read another book and move on. Learning to listen and see like a prophet in order to speak and act like a prophet also requires learning and listening to prophetic voices. U.S. Representative and Civil Rights Leader John Lewis passed away this week. And as I was looking over his speeches and words, one quote stood out to me that perfectly captures the idea of being prophetic. "Do not get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful, be optimistic. Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It is the struggle of a lifetime. Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble." Prophets were and continue to be people who bring hope when there is a sea of despair. They make noise and get into good and necessary trouble when there is injustice and inequity. Highrock, will we learn to listen to the voice of the prophets? Will we learn to listen and see like a prophet in order to work and act like a prophet? Will we learn to be prophets full of justice and righteousness, or something else? Let's pray. Father, we love you. We ask that you would fill us with a desire and a passion to see justice and righteousness, God. We ask that you would pour out justice and righteousness in a way that only you are able to, God, and that we would be there every step of the way, pushing for justice, pushing for righteousness. God, you are good. We ask all these things in Jesus' strong name. Amen.
Blessed are the merciful, blessed are the merciful, blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Forgive us as we forgive those who sinned against forgive us. Forgive us as we forgive those who've sinned against us. Forgive us as we forgive those who've sinned against us. Lord, have mercy on us. Show your mercy through us. Lord, have mercy on us. Show your mercy through us. Lord, have mercy on us. Show your mercy through us. Lord, have mercy on us. Show your mercy through us.
Hear the word of the Lord from the book of Amos, chapter 5. I despise your religious feasts. I cannot stand your assemblies. Even though you bring me burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. Though you bring choice fellowship offerings, I will have no regard for them. Away with the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the music of your harps. But let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. Amen. We are so thankful that you joined us this morning for worship. If you are from Highrock, Haverhill, don't forget the check-in tonight at 8 p.m. You can find a link to that in today's email. And we are just so glad that you joined us. Please be with us next week, 10 a.m. on this channel. Friends, go in peace to love and serve the Lord.